you know.
Right.
But Paul was getting through all of this stuff, and if you study it in the book of Acts, he was going, or not the book of Acts, I take that back, in the book of Romans, he talked about, I'm coming your way. He wrote that, he was on the way to Rome, but they took up this tremendous offering in Philippi, and he was going to Corinth. And if you read the stories in 2 Corinthians, Paul makes a statement about how I want you guys to take up an offering. I've told everybody else how great you are, how friendly, you know, and all that. And he says, so when I get there, I don't want you to give a little skimpy offering and embarrass me in front of all the Philippians,
right.
Philippians that are with me.
Right.
And so he says, then he said, I'm going to send some trusted brethren with the money back. And then he says, and if possible, God might let me go. See, he wasn't planning on it.
Right.
But he got to thinking, you know, if I could go back and take the church as huge, because Paul had everywhere Paul was going, they were knocking what he was saying and claiming that all this stuff. And he wanted to go, in fact, you read this in Romans 9, 10, and 11. That's all a big parenthetical statement of the book of Romans.
Right.
When he's talking about that my heart breaks above all, I wish, even if I could be accursed for the sake of my people, that they would accept Jesus.
Right.
That's the way he opens it up. And his heart was breaking because of so many Jews were rejecting Christ. And, you know, just like Jesus said in John 14, I am the way, the truth, the life. Nobody comes to the Father but by me. Yeah. So if they, even though they're of the Jewish faith, if they reject Jesus, they're condemned to hell.
Right.
Right.
And so Paul was wanting so desperately to go talk to them and say, look, this is what I'm saying. These people are twisting everything I say. I want to tell you exactly what it is. And so and you once again get back to the book of Acts, it said he was going and he says, I want to take this money, you know, that I've collected, and I want to go to Jerusalem and be there by Passover. He didn't make it.
Right.
So then in the next chapter he said, I want to try to make it before Pentecost.
Right, okay.
You know?
Yeah.
And I guess he did. I mean, I don't know if he did or not, but anyway, but he was going, and it talks about how that he went to Ephesus, and they were telling him, Paul, don't go. Chains and afflictions and bondage is awaiting you there. Don't not go. And you remember Paul, even when they anointed Paul originally, and back in Acts, I don't know, it was like the 9th chapter or so, when they were praying and God called Paul and Barnabas out and sent them on the first mission, the first evangelistic mission. God told them, they says, we have anointed you to go to the Gentiles and Peter to go to the Jews.
Oh.
Now that really tears the Catholic doctrine all to pieces. But you know, Peter was sent to the Hebrews,
right.
and Paul was sent to the Gentiles. Now he's wanting to go to the Hebrews and preach where God told him not to go. And so he wanted to go so desperately, and he thought, well, if I take this huge offering, because Israel as a whole was under the 6th stage of judgment, 5th stage of judgment that you see in Leviticus 27. Okay. If you do this, if you don't, I'm going to tell you to do this. If you don't repent, then I'll chastise you 7 times more. Right. If you don't do it, then I will chastise you 7 times more. The ground will be, there'll be no rain. The sun will be, you know, and all of that. Then he says, I'll have wild beasts come in amongst you. And he says that, and then he goes on even worse about, you know, other lands coming in and all this. All of those cycles of judgment, they were under the one where famine would be hitting Israel. And God in his, God and his benevolence and his love was taking care of his people, even though they were living in a land that was under judgment. And that's what that was for. It was Paul was taking it to the church. Remember the church in the beginning of the book of Acts, they sold all their land, liquidated everything they owned, and was giving it to the church, and the church was passing it out to the poor and everybody else. Right. And most of those people had lost their inheritance because they were disowned by the Jews. So, I mean, they were scraping
right.
and hurting.
Yeah.
And God taking care of it. It falls back to the fact that my God shall supply all of your needs.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And so God had the offering was of God, and they were taking it back to give them. But Paul thought, man, if I take it back to them, then they'll listen to me.
Right.